This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. With the strike at Manitoba Public Insurance finally over, management plans to begin restoring services tomorrow. 1,700 MPI workers had been on strike since the end of August. The union says the deal they've voted to accept will see them get wage increases of at least 13% over 4 years. CBC's Britney Greensleid has more on what it will take to address a backlog of driver testing, claims assessments, and other programs.
Our picket line is strong. What do we want?
For 10 weeks, Manitoba public insurance workers have been pounding the pavement on the picket lines. And after securing a deal Wednesday night, it's back to work tomorrow.
It means that the corporation is going to be up and running quickly and starting to function again.
1,700 MPI workers will return Friday morning, with service centers set to open at 1 o'clock. But when those doors reopen, the work to clear major backlogs begins.
Just as an example, there's 15,000 road tests that have to be rescheduled. And that's everything from individuals who are looking for a driver's license for work and many 16-year-olds that are looking to get their first driver's license. So it is going to take a bit of time.
MPI says they normally do approximately 300 road tests a day, and it could be months to deal with the backlog. It still has more than 9,000 hail claims to deal with from the August storm, and approximately 16,000 claims working their way through different stages.
All I can do is ask them to be patient. Part of it is getting our team back and running. Some of it is supply chain issues too. So we're just going to do the very best that we can.
But the deal is done. It was a top priority for the NDP government after the election.
Our government has come in with a mandate to end the headaches. A little over a week and a half after changing the board at MPI, we were able to put this PC strike behind us.
Minister Matt Wiebe, who is responsible for the Crown Corporation, says this deal sets the tone the new government is taking about ensuring fair deals for all government workers.
We want to tell workers now that we're willing to sit down with them, make sure that they get fair wages. But ultimately, what we're trying to do here is change the culture.
Earlier this year, liquor workers spent 6 weeks on strike fighting for higher wages while being locked out by the Crown Corporation. And 11,000 civil servants could be next.
It is a bit of a wake-up call for employers, right? I think that that there's been a few decades where they've just been sort of used to getting their way. And what we're seeing now is that that's no longer the case.
Professor Barry Edlund says these lengthy strikes show a shifting tide, especially in this economy.
Workers having heightened expectations, wanting to fight for more, being willing to fight for more, being willing to hold out for more, combined with employers that aren't used to that level of combativeness.
And there could be more to come. Britney Greensleid, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The partner of a First Nations man who died in the custody of Winnipeg police remembers him as a good man. Elias Whitehead was arrested in a struggle with officers and later was pronounced dead in hospital. Now we have a warning. This story contains video of that arrest, which you may find disturbing. Manitoba's police watchdog is investigating. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, Whitehead's family says they have few answers about his death.
37-year-old Elias Whitehead was a carpenter who came to Winnipeg to become a heavy equipment operator. His partner, Jody Beardy of Tatasquiac Cree Nation, where the couple lived, says Whitehead was supposed to graduate October 24th. He died 9 days before that after being taken into custody on Sherbrooke Street and Broadway by Winnipeg police officers on the night of October 15th, an arrest captured on camera by a witness.
I felt like I couldn't breathe. I seen the video, and I still see it. I can't sleep.
Beardy put out a call for more witnesses to come forward and to voice concerns about violence against Indigenous people.
The police are supposed to keep people safe. They're supposed to help people. But this wasn't the case for Elias.
Whitehead's death is being investigated by the Independent Investigation Unit. The IIU says during the arrest, Whitehead started having trouble breathing. Police Chief Danny Smythe had few new details to share in an interview Thursday. He offered condolences to Whitehead's family and promised officers would cooperate with the investigation.
I expect that our officers will meet with the IIU investigators and give an accounting of what occurred and why they did what they did.
Smythe wrote in a post online, officers would quickly locate the male who was combative and acting erratically. They attempted to take him into custody but were met with resistance. There was a struggle as officers used force to restrain and control the male. During the encounter, the male went into medical distress. Whitehead was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The police response was classified as a well-being check, but Smythe had no comment on the cause of Whitehead's behavior.
Family members say an autopsy has been done, but they don't have the results yet. They say they don't have the details about what Elias was doing in the hours leading up to the well-being call and his interaction with police.
Grand Chief Garrison Settee echoed the family's concerns.
Our people no longer feel safe under this system. There's something deeply wrong, and it must be fixed, and it must be fixed now.
Beardy wants to know why Whitehead was arrested.
Where was his help? Why didn't they keep him safe? Regardless of the situation, they failed him.
She hopes the IIU investigation brings out the truth. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg plans to delegate some of the responsibility to check on homeless encampments to community groups. Winnipeg's fire paramedic chief warned council this morning safety concerns are increasing. As well, the fire official who had been checking on encampments is going back to fire prevention. The chief says some of his duties will be handled by other officials, and community organizations will also pick up some of the slack. Meantime, shelters in Manitoba are getting a financial boost to ensure they can be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for those in need. Housing, Addictions and Homelessness Minister Bernadette Smith made that re-announcement today at Siloam Mission in Winnipeg. She says $2.6 million will help extend hours at shelters in Winnipeg, Brandon, The Paw, Thompson and Swan River. Smith says in the winter months, people need warm, safe spaces, not just at night.
This is exactly why we're seeing Manitobans seeking shelter in bus shelters, under bridges, in the entrances of businesses. We know that it's not right. We know that we can do better and that we must do better. It's a human right.
This is a one-year pilot project that Smith says will be reviewed and possibly extended. Siloam Mission says it has already been operating 24 hours a day, but had been running a deficit to do so. It says this funding will mean shelters can provide help to people during the day to help them find a more permanent housing solution. The Crown has concluded its cross-examination of Peter Nygard at his sexual assault trial in Toronto. The 82-year-old former fashion mogul has denied all allegations against him by 5 women. But during today's questioning, Nygard appeared to contradict some of his own past testimony. Jamie Strachan has the details.
On his final day on the witness stand, former fashion mogul Peter Nygard continued to reject any scenario that could link him to the 5 women who alleged the 82-year-old sexually assaulted them. In a series of rapid-fire questions, Nygard was presented with the various ways he met and then got the phone numbers of the alleged victims in this case. You don't remember telling one she had nice hair color, telling another complainant she could be a model, offering to triple another's salary? Absolutely not, Nygard told the court. He rejected the very idea that he would ever offer a woman his phone number during a testy exchange with the Crown. The Crown asked, "You're not some kind of cowardly lion. You would have no problem sharing your phone number with someone." Nygard told the court, "I would not be engaged in trying to get people's phone numbers, and quite frankly, I wouldn't need to, because they're normally trying to access me and trying to get my number. It's always been that way." Throughout his cross-examination, Nygard has repeatedly rejected behavior and scenarios described by the alleged victims as implausible. He did acknowledge, after being shown his interview with police, that exiting the bedroom of his Toronto headquarters, where the alleged assaults took place, could only happen with a code. In 2021, Nygard told police it would be difficult to get out if you didn't know the code. Nygard has pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of forcible confinement. He has told the court he has never met 4 of the 5 alleged victims. After more than a month, evidence from both sides is wrapped up, and the jury should begin deliberating next week. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Thousands of physicians across Canada are pushing back against a plan that would add an extra year to family doctor residency training. The College of Family Physicians of Canada says that's needed as part of education reform. But those who oppose it say the plan would make the shortage of family doctors for Canadians even worse. Karen Pauls has the story.
For weeks, Dr. Paul Dillon has been hearing concerns about the plan to add a 3rd year of training for family doctors.
I think we need evidence to show that it's going to provide better outcomes to patients, better outcomes to practicing family physicians.
So he submitted a motion calling on the College of Family Physicians of Canada to immediately cease the implementation of the 3rd year. The motion passed Wednesday evening.
The vote was approved with a 91.11% approval.
I think this was a resounding victory, a resounding statement to say stop. Now, whether they listen, that becomes the next really big question.
The college says only 7% of its 37,000 members voted to support the motion, and while it's not binding, it heard the message.
We need more dialogue and consultation on making sure there are not unintended consequences of any change to our training standards. But we also have to recognize that we have an organization that has a responsibility for standards that can sometimes be unpopular.
He says the status quo is no longer an option. A mandated 3rd year is meant to prepare physicians for more complex patients, new technologies, and team-based practices.
If we look forward 10, 15 years into the future, what are the new skills that family doctors are going to need?
But provincial health ministers oppose the plan. So do groups representing physicians, residents, and medical students, citing concerns about what's already a shortage in family doctors.
Currently, there are over 2 million Ontarians without a family doctor, and that's projected to rise to over 4 million, or 1 in 4 Ontarians, and that's extremely concerning.
The college says it will respond after its board meeting in Montreal next week. It's not ruling out a pause to reflect on the process and the timelines, do more research, and provide more opportunities to hear concerns. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Manitoba Nurses Union says something has to be done to deal with violent attacks on staff at Health Sciences Centre. The union has filed a grievance against Shared Health, citing safety concerns for its members. MNU President Darlene Jackson says nurses have to deal with vehicle break-ins in the parkade. And she says in the past 2 weeks, or rather in the past week alone, there have been 2 violent attacks against staff inside HSC. Jackson says in 2019, the province said it would have institutional safety officers in healthcare facilities. Passenger volumes at Winnipeg's Richardson International Airport were almost back to pre-pandemic levels over the past summer. Over the past 3 months, more than 1.2 million passengers passed through our airport. That brings it within 99% of traffic levels compared to the same period in 2019. Rossbrook House honored graduates of its 3 schools for Indigenous youth from the inner city. The schools teach elementary, middle, and high school students from an Indigenous perspective. Rossbrook House also hosted a 24/7 drop-in center offering activities to help youth gain life skills while they have fun. Here's a look at today's awards ceremony, craft sale, and open house.
Rossbrook House has been open 365 days a year since 1976. So that's a long time. There was a need for our children to find a strong sense of belonging and to be able to be in a safe place where they could feel free to take risks and be in a smaller class setting and for them to build their voices.
We beaded all these pins. Just selling things the student made to raise funds for our school and just to do trips and stuff.
Serving the customers, what are some of the things people have said today?
They just really like the art the students have made and kind of fascinated with how we made it and the process of it.
Open house is so important to our students because they get to plan, design, sell all of the things that are on the tables today, which is huge because we integrate it with the curriculum. So it's got a social studies aspect, it has a science aspect, there's lots of math involved.
Many past students who we will celebrate in our scholarship portion of the program will say, I would not have graduated or be where I am today without the support of these 3 schools and Rossbrook House.
I won the Sister Bernadette O'Reilly Scholarship for post-secondary students. Being here and working here is what sparked my interest in social work. So that was like very early on when I was about 14, 15. I kind of knew I wanted to go into it. I unfortunately did get into the program 10 years ago and I wasn't successful. So I actually just reapplied and I returned and I'm killing it right now. So I'm super happy and I'm grateful that they're continuing to support me in that.
Amazing. Keep killing it at school. That's a good thing.
It's an amazing
Meteorologist John Sauter is here. I know this afternoon you were talking about snow in the northwest. How's that going?
Yeah, you know, it was moving across Lake Manitoba, kind of splitting up a little bit as it gets closer to Winnipeg, but I still think we could see a few flurries as we head through the evening hours. Here's a look at the current numbers in Winnipeg. At the airport, we're at -1. We did get to 0 today. About an hour ago, winds were 30 gusting to 43, I believe, right out of the south. Right now, we've lost that gust factor, but still a bit of a breezy evening. Here's a look at the, big picture satellite radar, and you can see that right around Lake Manitoba a couple of hours ago, we did have a band of snow there, but as it gets down into the Winnipeg area, it's kind of splitting up a little bit and reproducing itself out on the east side. Lac du Bonnet, Pinawa, out toward Beausejour, right along Highway 15, out toward Elma. You'll probably see some evening flurries. Some of this may get down into the Steinbach area as well, but then it's just a partly cloudy to mainly cloudy sky overnight. So from 6 to about 10 o'clock on Futurecast, you can see a lot of that is east of the Red River Valley, east of Lake Winnipeg. So Barons River seeing quite a bit of snow this week, just 2 centimeters at a time, it seems. And then we've got that on the east side of the south basin of Lake Winnipeg. But look what happens for tomorrow. Almost all of us are going to be in some sort of sunshine. Now, again, up around the lakes area where the winds are just right, may pull a little moisture off those unfrozen lakes and drop it on the adjacent land mass. But we're looking at sunshine, and I think quite early in the day we'll be into the sunshine here. Here's a look at 4 o'clock, and even across northern Manitoba, either a sun-cloud mix or sunny skies. Churchill, the flurries will finally stop in the morning, but you'll still have the wind, so still some blowing snow in that part of the province for tomorrow. Now, Saturday, we're back into cloud cover, at least here in the southern 2/3 of the province, and can't rule out a flurry or two, but I don't think we're going to have to shovel that snow. There's a separate system moving our way on Sunday. Now, this is middle of the night into Sunday morning, and this looks like rain on the forecast model in Saskatchewan. So we'll see what happens as that system draws a little closer. Have a better idea tomorrow and Saturday how that's going to play out. Next 48 hours, snowfall amounts, nothing to write home about, not even really nothing more than a few flakes here in Winnipeg. It's Sunday afternoon, evening, and overnight into Monday. That's when we could start to see some accumulating snow once again. -6 the low tonight, under a mainly cloudy sky, and this is after we see a few evening snowflakes, but -4 in the morning, partly cloudy. That's very early, and then I think well before lunchtime we'll be into a mainly sunny sky and a high of 0. Winds are a lot less than they were today, so it'll be a lot more comfortable. And there are the temperatures going through the weekend and on into early next week. Still below seasonal, and again, we'll keep track of that system later on Sunday.
Thank you, John.
You bet.
Israeli forces moved into Gaza City today, but reports say resistance is heavy. Details coming up. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Israeli forces moved into Gaza City today. A statement from Israel's prime minister said the army was having success and had passed the city's outskirts. But reports say resistance is heavy. Hamas fighters are reported to be launching guerrilla-style attacks, emerging from tunnels, then retreating back into them. Israeli forces are also encountering planted explosives. They say Hamas was well prepared. Israel struck targets across Gaza today. Gaza health authorities say the campaign has now killed about 9,000 people. That number has not been independently verified. The humanitarian situation remains desperate. Shortages have some people drinking salt water, ambulances scaling back to save fuel. There's leaking sewage, open garbage. The World Health Organization says about a third of Gaza's 35 hospitals are not functioning at all. The crossing out of Gaza into Egypt was open for a second day, allowing foreign nationals to leave and head home. At least some of the critically injured could also receive additional medical treatment. The CBC's Tom Perry has that story.
The evacuation continues. Civilians, foreign and dual nationals, all making their way out of Gaza to Egypt through the Rafah crossing. The latest list of roughly 600 people approved to leave includes citizens of more than a dozen countries. The biggest group on that list, with 400 names, the United States.
Unfortunately, I'm not even excited to leave Gaza because we have so many people that we love and care about. So right now I'm between ice and fire. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to see the family that I left behind or the friends that I left behind. People are dying. Everybody's dying. Nobody's safe. We don't have bomb shelters.
For those who didn't make the list, frustration. I want to pass, says this Egyptian woman. We're not animals. I have Egyptian rights. No Canadians were included on the list today. Canadian citizens trapped in Gaza still waiting to see when they can leave, with some facing a difficult choice.
Hello.
Mohammed.
Hello.
Mohammed, is that you? It's
Hi,
Tom. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you too.
We reached Mohammed Al Hussein on a shaky phone line in Gaza where communication is crumbling.
The amount of destruction is unbelievable, and we just want this to stop.
Al Hussein is Canadian, married to a Palestinian. Their two daughters hold Canadian citizenship, but his sisters and elderly parents do not.
They told me they're pretty sure they won't be able to get them out. But the thing is that I really can't get out without my parents.
He's weighing whether to stay or go.
So I'm in a very difficult situation at the moment. I'm not sure who to leave behind.
The Canadian embassy in Egypt says it doesn't comment on individuals, that it works on a case-by-case basis. Canada's ambassador says he hopes to see Canadian names on that list to get out of Gaza very soon. Tom Perry, CBC News, Cairo.
With Israel's ground offensive progressing, questions being posed by observers. What does Israel hope to achieve? The CBC's Ellen Morrow reports.
Every day, the Israeli military releases videos like these. Its troops, military officials say, pushing further in, now starting to operate in Gaza City itself. Israel says it's killed dozens of Hamas leaders in its advance, but the toll on Gaza civilians is climbing too. The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 9,000 people have been killed. This was the aftermath of a strike near a UN school turned shelter. The UN says 4 of its shelters were damaged by airstrikes in the last day. We did nothing wrong, this little boy cries. We did nothing wrong. But cries for help here go unanswered. This is as close as most foreign journalists can get to the fighting. A hilltop in southern Israel.
That's Gaza there behind me, less than 10 kilometers away. And from here, every few minutes, we hear the boom of artillery fire. You can hear planes overhead. We've heard airstrikes, heavy machine gun fire. And that all gives you the sense of the growing intensity of this Israeli offensive.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, flanked by soldiers, says we will advance and we will win. Israel says it wants to wipe out Hamas for the October 7th massacre of 1,400 Israelis. But what does winning look like?
we should also start thinking about the day after.
This analyst says Israel doesn't have a clear endgame.
Hamas in Gaza City will exist, maybe in a very limited manner, maybe much smaller organization, but of course it won't be vanished, and we in Israel should define those goals in a very realistic manner.
With the world's eyes on Gaza, there's growing unrest in the occupied West Bank. 4 Palestinians killed in clashes with Israeli troops overnight, and an Israeli motorist killed by a Palestinian gunman. There are fears of a second front with Hezbollah in the north, rockets fired from Lebanon landing in Israel. Tensions grow every day, and for the loved ones of the 242 hostages being held by Hamas, so does anxiety. Netanyahu says the ground offensive may help free the captives, but many fear it further endangers them.
For me, of course not. There's no military operation that I'm aware of that can free 240 hostages that are located in many different locations.
With the battle for Gaza City looming, the fiercest fighting is set to come. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Back here in Canada, gun lobbyists and hunting groups appeared before senators in Ottawa today, urging them not to pass Bill C-21. The Liberal government's gun legislation successfully passed the House of Commons in the spring, and it's currently being considered by a Senate committee. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
If passed, Bill C-21 will restrict handguns, increase penalties for gun smuggling, and try to prevent the creation of homemade firearms. It will also make it harder for those who are involved with domestic violence to access rifles. And it would ban the sale of new assault-style firearms. Groups representing gun owners urge senators not to pass it.
I don't think C-21 is a balance. I really believe that we have to get to the root cause of some of these issues, as was mentioned by one of my colleagues here this morning. And what's behind the violence?
The Liberal bill has the support of the Bloc, NDP, and Greens. The Conservatives oppose it, saying it punishes law-abiding gun owners.
We're being blamed for the actions of criminals in downtown Toronto or downtown Vancouver.
But advocates for gun control say the hobbies of handgun owners should not trump public safety. They argue removing guns from the market will prevent violence.
I lived through a mass shooting by a legal gun owner with an assault weapon, and we work with other victims of mass shootings, and all of them would agree that we need to remove these weapons from the hands of Canadians.
The Liberal government says the bill is not meant to target hunting rifles, but the hunting groups disagree.
A semi-automatic rifle, I use some in my trap line. I mean, I could be attacked by wolves, I could be attacked by bears when I'm out there. And if you ever watched the hunting of a wild boar, you would definitely understand why somebody would want a semi-automatic rifle.
There are plenty of hunting rifles and shotguns that are legal, that are able to kill these animals. We don't need AR-15s in our woods.
The Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights and other gun organizations took the federal government to court. They argued Ottawa didn't have the authority to ban weapons like AR-15s. But on Monday, a federal judge dismissed their case, ruling that the federal regulations did not infringe on Canadians' charter rights, a decision the gun organizations say they will appeal. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
The New Democrats served notice today they will be backing a Conservative motion on the carbon tax plan. The Liberal government announced a week ago there would be a pause on the carbon tax for home heating oil, but only oil. The Conservatives are calling on the Liberals to expand the break to all forms of home heating. Today, the NDP said it would support that.
We've got to be the adults in the room. So given the panicked reaction from the Liberals, seemingly tied to their polling standing in Atlantic Canada, given that the Conservatives for once have actually offered a motion that doesn't deny climate change, we will be supporting that motion.
Peter Julian said this is not a confidence matter, something Pierre Poilievre has been pushing for in the House of Commons. He'd like to see it made that, because if the Liberals lost a confidence vote, the government would be expected to step down and call an election. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump denied any knowledge of wrongdoing while testifying today at a New York fraud trial. Their father, Donald Trump, along with top executives of his organization, are accused of inflating the net worth of the family real estate company. The New York Attorney General alleges the overvalued financial documents help the business secure loans and get better deals. Last month, Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer testified Trump used to direct them to exaggerate the value of his assets. The trial is expected to last through December. Air travel was one of the industries hit hardest in the pandemic. It has rebounded, even our own airport, as we reported earlier. But the picture in the skies is still a different one from back in 2019. The CBC's Kyle Bax has this story.
The biggest change is the number of seats that airlines are offering right now within Canada. Flying domestically can be a challenge, and new figures reinforce that point. This month, the number of seats offered by airlines to fly within Canada is down about 20% compared to November of 2019. That's a big drop in the number of tickets for sale and the overall level of air service by airlines. With Air Canada, the number of domestic seats is down about 25% compared to 4 years ago. For WestJet, it's down nearly 28%.
It's not great because it means that there's entire communities that are, if not entirely cut off, some members of those communities just find it unaffordable to travel, and so they're not able to establish the kind of links that we might hope for in a well-connected economy, in a well-connected society.
The second largest carrier, WestJet, says the number of available seats may be down, but it is flying fuller planes than in the past. In an interview, an executive says the airline is trying to post a profit this year after 3 years of losses, while also trying to meet the needs of communities. Overall, while the two largest carriers are offering fewer flights domestically, figures show they have both increased the amount of international seats compared to 4 years ago. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
King Charles is in Kenya on the third day of his 4-day visit to the East African country. Today, Charles and Queen Camilla witnessed a drill by one of the British-trained Kenyan Marine units. It's his first state visit to a Commonwealth nation as monarch. The UK has had a long-standing defense cooperation with Kenya. In May, they partnered to create the country's first Marine military commando unit. Kenya is also celebrating the 60th anniversary of its independence this year. The Costume Museum of Canada holds its legendary semi-annual vintage clothing sale tomorrow evening. We'll show you some of the gems up for grabs at the Albert Street location and explain how cash from the sale helps when CBC Winnipeg News continues. Tomorrow is the first Friday of November as arts organizations in Winnipeg's Exchange District open their doors to visitors as part of their First Fridays celebrations. Volunteers at the Costume Museum of Canada hold what they call their legendary vintage sale. It runs from 6 to 9 p.m. The president of the museum's board of directors, Andrea Brown, gave me a sneak peek today.
This would be from the 50s, 60s, very popular. We've got quite a few feathered hats on the table.
And they're for sale in your
They
vintage.
are. This is part of our sale tomorrow. Oh, yeah.
My mother loved hats, and I think that's why I have an affection for them, too.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you got to love and get involved with the Costume Museum.
Well, I have a passion for fashion.
And it comes from your mom, too.
And it does. Growing up as a little girl and putting on her alligator shoes and the purse and playing dress up, and it, it has evolved. We have some wonderful blouses and ready for the holiday season in these emerald green colors and jewel tones. The clothing tells a story. There's a story behind this hat. Where was this hat worn and so on? And when we get donations, we will often get the provenance about it, the history. And we do sometimes and sometimes we don't. So, okay, this is fun. From the 70s.
That's amazing.
All that detail.
So the things that you're selling for the vintage sale, how important is this to funding for the Costume Museum?
It's very important. We require quite a bit throughout the year, and this is one of our large events. We have 2 vintage sales, one in the spring and one in the fall. So the sale is on tomorrow, and it's First Fridays in the Exchange. This is just beautiful, and I know many ladies will remember the Port store that was in Winnipeg at Polo Park. Well, here is a 2-piece suit.
So these are donations, donated items?
These are items that have been donated to us for our sale, or sometimes when donors bring clothing in, we'll have a look at it. It might be something that it won't go in the collection necessarily.
Perhaps you've got something that's representative of it already.
That's right.
And how many pieces are in the permanent collection?
Oh, 36,000 and counting.
Wow.
So we have to be fairly discreet what we take these days. And wedding dresses are the #1 that has been preserved in families for centuries, and we have a very large collection. So
you're good for those.
Yeah, we're pretty good for that.
It's lovely.
And look at this. Love this.
Oh, that's so fun.
No, the discs. And the beauty is, this is the original. You know, there's, you don't need to say, but knockoffs. And this is an original. And it's absolutely beautiful. And just to give you an idea, $40, and it's 100% wool. And you're supporting the cause, the Costume Museum of Canada.
You were talking about dressing the mannequins and how much fun that is, but the gorgeous things that we see on these mannequins are not for sale tomorrow, correct?
These are our Mary Mecco display, which is a fashion and design house from Finland that started in the 1950s. These are current Mary Mecco dresses, and we have some from the 60s and 70s as well on the other side of the room. You can see the fun fabrics and designs. One that's very popular that they're known for, it's almost like their trademark, is the Unico Poppy. Now they're producing this print in many colors. And Adidas, this is a branded Adidas, but with Mary Mecco. So they're doing a collaboration.
When can people come into the Costume Museum? I think this is a resource that a lot of Winnipeggers don't realize we have.
Okay. Well, over the summer we were open Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons and some Saturdays. And when we have an exhibit on, then we'll be open throughout that time.
So check the website.
That's right, yeah.
Andrea Brown, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Welcome. Thank you, Janet.
And as you can see, Janet did do a little bit of shopping today for a good cause.
$20 colors for my
Nice.
cute little hat that I don't think will keep me very warm. I don't think it'll help at all with any sort of snow or cold weather.
Yeah, it is early.
It is early for us to have snow, and it's been colder than it normally is, correct?
Absolutely. This snow is early. I want to show you the almanac because last year on this day, you can see that second line there. Last year, the high was 18.4, the low 2.8, which is the normal daytime high. That was the morning low. But when you look at the records, we can see that the 18.4 last year was not quite a record. You don't even want to get close to this record. The record low right around -20 for this date. Can't imagine that. But yes, we've had some cold weather in the past, and just a year ago, some very, very warm weather. No snow on the ground this time last year, but certainly have it now. We've still got some temperatures that are above zero. Eli, St. Laurent, and yesterday, last evening actually, temperature bumped up a little bit. It's 3 in Dauphin right now. It was 4 degrees this afternoon, but 0 in Brandon at the moment, -1 over in Kenora and down through Sprague. Across the north, of course, we're a little bit cooler. You get north of Norway House, and it does cool off. Thompson, Gillam at -8, -7, and Churchill at -12 at the moment in Lynn Lake. And you'll see the forecast conditions for the north coming up in a second. I want to show you northwestern Ontario and tonight, because we still have a couple of flurries around, maybe even a couple of centimeters worth through Kenora, Red Lake. Just a chance, though, in Dryden. Some evening and overnight flurries in Fort Francis, all part of that system that rolled through Flin Flon, Norway House, down into Barons River, where we still have a few evening flurries, but it is quickly moving off into Ontario. And then there's that separate little pulse of snow that is really just a few evening flurries in front of your headlights in the Winnipeg area, Steinbach, and down through Sprague. So that's not a snow that we're going to need to shovel. Could see a few of those flurries around Dauphin as well, but that would be later on in the evening when temperatures cool off a little bit. Up to the north, we're looking at temps that are in the minus double digits in most areas. Still some blowing snow around Churchill, another couple of centimeters. And then tomorrow, the flurries and light snow end in the morning, but the blowing continues in Churchill. Otherwise, lots of sunshine across the north and pretty seasonal temperatures. We look at the southwest, and we are mildish, but quite a bit of sun through Dauphin, Swan River, Winnipeg. I think we'll see a mainly sunny sky, high of 0, much lighter winds than yesterday. Over into northwestern Ontario, it's a sun-cloud mix, anywhere from +2 in Fort Francis to a high of -3 in Red Lake.
Thank you, John.
You bet.
Manitoba is home to one of the most influential Filipina in the world. Who is she? What does that title mean? CBC's Jim Agapito finds out. Stay tuned. Dr. Denise Coe is, among other things, Manitoba's Chief Occupational Officer, a best-selling author, and now one of the most influential Filipina in the world. What does that mean? CBC's Jim Agapita had a chance to speak with her about her latest honor.
What is your title?
I have a number of titles. So I have, so my government jobs, I'm the Chief Occupational Medical Officer. And then that's with Workplace Safety and Health. And then my public health job with Health, the Department of Health, is Medical Officer of Health. And then I'm also an assistant professor with the university, psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, life coach, speaker. I'm now a best-selling author, apparently. I found out today. What else could I tell? Oh, I'm also the founder of MedResurrex and the creator of the MedResurrex hypnotherapy app. So it's like a mouthful, I know, I'm sorry. It's like, yeah.
Well, don't be sorry. I mean, we're here because you just got
everything.
Yeah, and you just got an interesting title that you are going to be awarded with, the most influential Filipina in the world. First of all, what does that mean? And tell me, how did that all happen?
So with how the FWN works, which is the Filipina Women's Network. So this is a global network. Started off in the United States, and then it became global. So it was like 2006, I think, is when the organization was created, and it was mainly American Filipino women, or Filipinas. And then I think they went global in 2013, and they have these awards, basically to, I guess, uplift and support Filipino women and make sure that the women that are doing this kind of work, like Filipinas in the world that are doing this kind of work, get, I guess, accolades for it.
Lenny, the old vice president of the Philippines, was awarded that award.
I know, it's a little bit like, if you think about it long enough, it's a little bit, I don't know, I feel a bit sick about it. Almost it's like nauseating, because it's like, oh my God, that's so much pressure. So part of FWN, when you're an awardee, you have to commit to actually nominating somebody every year, which means I'm now on the lookout for like noteworthy Filipino women. Yeah. So it's like, that's a good thing, right?
From all over the world.
Well, I'm looking here. I always look at like my people first.
As the most influential Phil, you know what I say this all the time. What is some advice you can give to the people at home listening, watching? What advice would you give them?
A couple of things. I talked about this a little in my speech too. One of them is knowing your why. And so if you know what your why is, if you have a strong enough why, you can handle any how. So if you really have a thing like that you're committed to, it doesn't matter what they throw at you. You'll just try again. You'll just try a different way. So I think that's really an important piece of it. Challenge the messaging. So just because you might say, oh, I don't think I can do that, or I'm too young, I'm not rich enough, I'm not educated enough, I'm not, challenge those beliefs, because those are just limiting beliefs. You don't actually have to accept that just because someone might even tell you, you're too old to do this. It's like, well, no, I am who I am now. It doesn't, age is just a number. So yeah, step aside. You're not helping. I'll just keep going, right?
The ceremony celebrating Dr. Denise Coe and other influential Filipina is this weekend in Prague. Britney Spears with her 2000 song, Lucky. The singer and now author is feeling lucky, certainly. Has her recently released memoir, The Woman in Me, sold more than 1 million copies in its first week. Fans of the pop singer gobbled up this highly anticipated book. Spears penned the book in the fallout of her controversial conservatorship, which controlled much of her daily life for 13 years. In a statement, Spears thanked fans for their unwavering support, added she poured her heart and soul into that memoir. We'll be back with your 7-day forecast and daily lift in just a moment.
Well, Friday will be a much brighter day, a little less in the way of wind, a very agreeable 0. And then we've got a few flurries and a lot more cloud around on Saturday on the weekend. And it does look like a system rolls our way for the afternoon, evening, and overnight. Some snow on Sunday, and that's overnight into Monday morning. And then we brighten up on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Looks like more flurries on the way. You know, it's always an impressive feat when groups try to build human towers.
I would be so good at that.
Really?
I'm so not. No. Here is your daily lift. This crowd in Spain was practically silent as the attempt got underway. It watched transfixed as our participants set up a record for a type of human tower assembly that had never before been attempted. There was plenty of celebration as the last individual made it to the top of the crown.
Whoa.
Woo! And then soon after, they disassembled even more quickly than they were built. They meant to do that. The disassembling.
Really?
See, that's what would have happened with me in the building process. I'd be like, yeah, I gotcha, I don't gotcha. And we'd all come crashing down.
And hopefully no one was injured.
No
That
one.
looked like it was
They were
painful.
all very happy and yay.
Good night.
Good night.